Welcome to the Daily Vibecasting. Today, Anthropic eclipses OpenAI with a mind-bending valuation. But inside big tech, the human job market is turning into a literal squid game. We are breaking down the vibe of the markets, the machines, and what it means for you.
It's definitely a wild time out there right now.
It really is. And I mean, we have a massive update that just dropped today from the Kovisi letter on X.
Right.
According to their breakdown of this new Bloomberg reporting, Anthropic is closing a funding round that pushes its valuation past $900 billion.
Which is just an astronomical figure.
Yeah, $900 billion. You really have to let that number sink in for a second. That makes them the most valuable private company in the world.
Surpassing OpenAI.
Exactly. Officially surpassing OpenAI. We are talking about backing from Sequoia, from Dragonair, and they're projecting this $50 billion annualized run rate revenue by the end of June.
I mean, it demands, frankly, a pretty heavy dose of skepticism.
You think so?
Oh, absolutely. Whenever we see capital piling up this fast around, a single foundational technology, we really have to ask if we are looking at a historic, sustainable boom or
a bubble.
Right, or just the 1990s telecom bubble all over again.
Oh, that's an interesting comparison.
Well, think about it. Back then, companies spent absolute fortunes laying millions of miles of fiber optic cables. It was billed as the new gold rush.
Right, everyone was laying cable.
Yeah, and eventually all that infrastructure just became a dirt cheap utility. It got completely commoditized. We might be doing the exact same thing right now, just laying digital fiber.
That telecom comparison is really fascinating, especially when you actually look at the raw data. Like the latest charts of the week that A16's just published.
That's all this.
Yeah, they track the price of AI inference per million tokens from 2022 all the way out to 2026. And the chart, it literally looks like a cliff.
Just a straight line down.
Totally. The price is an absolute free fall across all the intelligence index levels. So the actual cost to generate a thought or a line of code or a summary, it's trending towards zero.
Right.
But here is the catch. Because it's getting so incredibly cheap, we are witnessing a textbook example of the Jevons paradox.
Which is such a cool, counterintuitive economic rule.
Explain that for a second for the listeners.
Yeah, so the Jevons paradox basically dictates everything happening in tech right now. It says that as a resource becomes more efficient and cheaper to produce, we don't actually end up using less of it to save money.
We use more.
We end up using exponentially more of it. Like, think about highway lanes. You add 3 lanes to a highway to reduce traffic, but the wider highway just invites more drivers.
Right, and suddenly you just have a much bigger traffic jam.
Exactly. And the A16's data proves this is happening with compute right now. Google saw a 7x year-over-year increase in token consumption.
7x. That's insane.
Because intelligence is practically free now, companies are just flooding the zone with it.
Okay, but that creates a really glaring contradiction, doesn't it? If the fundamental product, the intelligence itself, trends towards zero cost because it's a commodity, how on earth can a model builder justify a $900 billion valuation?
That's the billion-dollar, or I guess $900 billion question.
Right, like where is that value actually accruing?
It accrues at the physical layer.
The silicon.
Exactly, the silicon. The hardware level is where the true moats are being built right now, not in the software wrappers.
Which brings up this viral Blackboard lecture from Dwarkesh Patel on X.
Oh, yeah, that was brilliant.
He sat down with Rainer Pope from MadX to literally map out the physical constraints of computing. I watched this lecture, and I'll admit, once they started drawing out multiplexers and logic gates and registers, my head started spinning a bit.
Yeah, it gets pretty dense pretty fast.
It does. I know a GPU is massive and flexible, but they kept talking about how a TPU, a tensor processing unit, uses something called a systolic array.
Right.
Why does the physical architecture matter so much here?
Because computing isn't magic. People think of the cloud as this invisible thing, but it is literally electricity moving through physical space.
Okay.
The biggest drain on power and time in a chip isn't actually the calculation itself. It's the data movement.
Shuffling it around.
Yeah, shuffling the information from the memory to the processor and back again. Think of a standard GPU, like a massive restaurant kitchen, where every single chef has to walk all the way to the pantry to grab one single ingredient.
Okay.
Then they walk back to their station, chop it, and then walk all the way back to the pantry to drop it off.
That sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It is, and that constant walking back and forth is what drains the power. A systolic array on a TPU changes that architecture entirely. It operates more like a bucket brigade.
Oh, okay.
The data flows directly from one computation unit to the next without ever going back to the main memory. It fixes the weights locally, so the chef chops the ingredient and just immediately hands it to the chef right next to him to cook. It is purpose-built for the exact, highly repetitive matrix multiplication that AI requires. That physical efficiency, that's the real bottleneck of the AI boom right there.
And we are seeing enterprise companies really trying to exploit that efficiency while, simultaneously hoarding all their own data. Like NVIDIA AI just announced this massive new feature called AIQ.
Yeah, this is huge for enterprise.
It's an open source agent skill built on their Nemo toolkit that allows enterprise systems like Codex to delegate incredibly complex research tasks to local or hosted servers.
And the second order effect of something like AIQ is a direct threat to the big frontier models.
How so?
Well, companies want the power of this dirt cheap intelligence we've been talking about, but they are terrified of sending their proprietary corporate data out into the cloud to be scraped by someone else's training run.
So instead of pinging a massive external model, they just keep it entirely in-house.
Exactly.
AIQ handles the intent classification, it does the shallow lookups, iterates on deep research, and then it returns structured reports with citations, all within their own walled garden.
Which completely forces us to ask that $900 billion question again.
Right.
If enterprise clients are locking their data away and the intelligence itself costs fractions of a penny, the massive windfalls aren't going to go to the model builders. The wealth transfer is going straight to the hardware providers and to the end users who can successfully deploy these local agents.
But if the compute layer is handling all that complex reasoning and local agents are doing the deep research, that forces a pretty brutal question for the people who actually built these systems in the first place.
The engineers.
Yeah, what happens to the human software engineer? The cost of intelligence crashing is just fundamentally changing human capital.
It is changing the very definition of what a developer even is. We are seeing these two massive extremes pulling the industry apart right now. On one end, you have the ultimate tech triumph of the individual.
Right, like Gary Kahn, the CEO of Y Combinator, he just posted a breakdown of how he shipped 600,000 lines of production code in just 60 days.
600,000 lines. That used to be a whole team's work for a year.
Easily. And he attributed it to a framework he calls thin harness fat skills, using this open source tool called Grease Stack.
Yeah.
He strictly separates the latent judgment of the AI model from deterministic tools like math or SQL.
Yeah.
But for people who aren't, deep in the weeds, what does a thin harness actually look like in practice for a developer?
A thin harness essentially means the human is just building the rigid scaffolding.
Yeah.
The rules, the boundaries, the architecture. You don't hand the AI a blank page and say, hey, build me an app. You treat the AI like a ridiculously fast, brilliant, but somewhat chaotic junior developer.
Let's manage it.
Exactly. The human engineers this really tight box, and the AI does the messy, complex thinking inside that box.
And when you build the right box, the output is just staggering. DHH, the creator of Ruby on Rails, he posted about using GPT 5.5, calling it a massive leap for complex agentic work.
Yeah, DHH doesn't praise things lightly either.
Right. And he said it generated almost the entirety of a 30,000-line QML code branch for a project called Omarchy 4. He actually noted that trying to go back to Claude Opus 4.7 felt like a massive step backward.
Wow.
And adding to that, a report from Artificial Analysis just showed that tools like Cursor Composer 2.5 are now like 3 to 18 times cheaper than their competitors because their token usage is so highly optimized.
That is the utopian vision right there.
Right.
One guy, a laptop, and 600,000 lines of code.
Living the dream.
Right. But if you are a mid-level developer listening to this deep dive right now, that triumph is probably setting off massive alarm bells for you.
Oh, for sure.
Because while the founders are scaling to the moon, the reality inside big tech corporations is turning incredibly dark.
It really is. Polymarket actually highlighted a viral post from a recently laid-off Meta engineer who compared the company's internal stack ranking system to Squid Game.
Which is a heavy, heavy comparison for a corporate performance review.
Seriously, Squid Game.
But it captures the visceral anxiety of the moment so perfectly. Workers are basically being pitted against each other in this toxic environment of constant performance battles.
Yeah, the post detailed real-time AI productivity monitoring. Like when the AI is writing 80% of the boilerplate code, human visibility, literally just proving you are the one pulling the strings, becomes the only way to survive the forced distribution curve.
It completely erodes any sense of teamwork. You're just trying to outprompt the guy sitting next to you.
And the demotions are happening at an industrial scale. George Oros, who writes that massively popular software engineering newsletter, he confirmed that Meta forcefully reassigned over 1,000 software engineers.
1,000 engineers.
Up to 40% of some teams, like their ads division, were quietly shifted. They weren't laid off, they kept their salaries, but they were demoted to mundane data labelers.
Just think about the psychological whiplash of that reality.
It's wild.
You spend years mastering computer science, you land a highly paid product development role at Meta, and suddenly your daily task is literally packaging Docker containers and creating test cases.
Yeah.
You are feeding data into the reinforcement learning models that are actively replacing your former job. It is the hollowing out of the tech middle class.
It makes you wonder about the broader societal squeeze, too. Andrew Ng, who is a true pioneer of modern AI, just heavily criticized a new policy at Harvard on X.
Oh, I saw this.
Harvard voted to limit the number of A grades in undergraduate classes to about 20% to fight grade inflation.
Right.
Ng argued that this prioritizes judging students over actually helping them succeed. He advocates for empowering 100% of learners to get that A. But when you look at Harvard manufacturing scarcity on one end and Meta running a Squid Game stack ranking system on the other, it really feels like a modern tech career is just surviving an endless series of forced distribution curves.
Because companies no longer need an army of B-plus coders. When an AI can write 30,000 lines of code in an afternoon, a corporation doesn't need 50 mid-level developers. They only want the top 1% of human architects to oversee the models, and they need a legion of minimum wage, or, I guess in Meta's case, highly paid data labelers at the bottom to feed the machine. The middle is just completely evaporating.
But replacing human coders with AI creates a whole new set of problems. AI needs endless data centers and elite researchers, and we are hitting hard physical and regulatory walls on both of those fronts right now.
Big time.
Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn, raised massive alarms on X over new Department of Homeland Security policy. The policy requires temporary visa holders, and this includes crucial AI researchers and tech students who are seeking green cards to actually leave the U.S. and wait in their home countries through a massive backlog process.
Right, so Reid Hoffman is warning that this policy triggers an immediate brain drain.
Yeah.
His argument is that forcing brilliant researchers out of the U.S. ecosystem completely disrupts business continuity for American innovation at literally the worst possible time.
Exactly. But on the flip side, we have to look at the DHS perspective outlined in the source responses, which argues this is strictly about closing immigration loopholes.
Right, they have their stated reasons.
They state the policy is designed to enforce standard consular processing rather than in-country adjustments, with the explicit goal of restoring the legal immigration system to its intended function.
Yeah.
Regardless of the political mechanics there, though, the immediate downstream effect for tech founders is that talent retention is becoming a massive logistical nightmare right when the global AI arms race is peaking.
And talent is just one bottleneck. If you want to talk about hard limits, look at the physical world.
Oh yeah, the energy and water constraints.
Exactly. There is this pervasive narrative right now that AI data centers are boiling the oceans and draining our reservoirs to cool their servers. But Trung Fan posted a fascinating statistic that kind of throws a wrench into that panic.
What was the stat?
So in California, almond orchards consume roughly 3 to 5.5 million acre-feet of water every single year.
Wait, almonds? Like the nuts?
Yes. Almonds. California uses 4 to 7 times more water on almond orchards than all North American data centers combined are projected to use in 2025.
That is wild.
We are pouring millions of acre-feet of water into drought-prone agricultural areas for nuts and golf courses, yet the regulatory panic is entirely focused on the data centers driving, the most important technological revolution of our lifetime.
It really highlights a massive, cynical disconnect in how we allocate physical resources versus how we regulate the future.
It really does.
And the friction to build isn't just physical, it's deeply digital too. Like if you're a solopreneur trying to build in this space today, the environment is incredibly hostile.
Oh yeah, it's the Wild West out there.
The famous indie hacker level SEO went viral, giving advice to a new developer setting up a Hetzner virtual private server.
Mm-hmm.
His advice was extreme. He said block absolutely all inbound firewall traffic, install Tailscale for your SSH access, and use a Cloudflare tunnel for your web port.
He is essentially telling developers to build a digital bunker.
A bunker, exactly.
By using Tailscale and Cloudflare tunnels, You are creating a zero-trust environment where your server doesn't even have an open public IP address.
Right, it's totally hidden.
You have to minimize your attack surface to zero just to survive the automated botnets and scrapers that are constantly roaming the modern web. The infrastructure is incredibly powerful, but you have to armor it perfectly before you write a single line of code.
So we are building these heavily armored digital bunkers. We're fighting over water rights, navigating visa backlogs, and surviving corporate Squid Games.
It sounds bleak when you put it like that.
It does. But the crazy thing is, if you step outside into Silicon Valley right now, you wouldn't feel any of that anxiety. The boots-on-the-ground vibe in tech is just pure, unadulterated optimism.
Oh, the reality distortion field is in full effect right now.
Tesla just announced their full self-driving version 14.3 Ton X, and the official post made a ridiculously bold claim: you don't have to drive anymore.
I saw that.
And users are actually validating this. One user documented an 800-mile trip from Dallas to Denver that was almost entirely hands-off.
I read that thread too, and if you actually scroll through the replies on that exact same post, you see a flood of users pointing out navigation glitches.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the car still gets confused in unpredictable edge cases. The question isn't whether the model works 99% of the time.
Right, it's about the 1%.
Exactly. The question is whether humans are genuinely ready to fully surrender the wheel to a statistical model, or if this is just another hype cycle masking a system that still demands constant, hypervigilant supervision.
Well, Robert Scoble certainly seems ready to surrender the wheel.
Naturally.
He posted about taking his AI-driven car into San Francisco, officially declaring it the city of the future. He was attending the Canopy Festival at Fort Mason, which was hosted by Founders, Inc.
I heard about this.
Yeah, they launched 120 AI companies in front of 2,000 attendees. And Scoble didn't even prep for the festival himself. He had his AI agents scour X for insights about the event, track the attendees, and curate a custom briefing for him before he ever stepped out of the car.
That is so Scoble.
The whole ecosystem is just feeding on itself in the most futuristic way possible.
It really is a remarkable convergence of talent, capital, and sheer belief in one physical location.
So when you look at all of this, right, AI writing 600,000 lines of code, hardware scaling with symbolic arrays, autonomous cars navigating 800-mile road trips, but then humans being demoted to data labelers.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the most optimistic time to be a builder, or is it the most precarious?
It is entirely dependent on where you sit in the hierarchy.
What do you mean?
Well, if we look back at that A16's data on the plunging inference costs, it points to this being an absolute golden age for the solopreneur.
Because it's so cheap.
Right. If you have the vision and the architectural skills to wrangle an AI agent within a thin harness, you basically wield the power of a 50-person engineering team right from your laptop.
Yeah.
But if you are a mid-level developer who is mostly used to writing boilerplate code, or a middle manager whose only real skill is organizing Jira tickets, your skill set is rapidly being commoditized to zero.
The middle is falling out.
Completely. Which is why my prediction for tomorrow, and really for the next 24 months, is a massive, unprecedented exodus of top-tier talent from big tech.
And an exodus.
Oh, yeah. The best engineers aren't going to stick around to package Docker containers in a metadata center just to survive a forced distribution curve. They're going to leave.
To do what?
They're going to form 1 to 3 person AI startups armed with frontier models, and they are going to achieve billion-dollar valuations. The mega corporation, as we know it, is going to unbundle into micro teams.
That is a wild trajectory, but honestly, everything in the data today points exactly in that direction.
It does.
Which leaves us with one final provocative thought for you to mull over as you navigate this changing landscape.
Let's hear it.
If an AI can write 30,000 lines of complex code in an afternoon, and it can drive your car 800 miles across the country, but the legacy human job inside a trillion-dollar tech company is being reduced to simply labeling data for the machine, what is the ultimate premium human skill of the 2030s? When intelligence is free, what is the one thing you can do that an agent can't?
That is honestly the only question that matters right now.
Thank you for tuning in to this deep dive. We'll catch you next time on the Daily Vibecasting. Keep building, stay curious, and we will see you tomorrow.